Welcome to the Mile High Chiro webinar interview series. This is your Boulder chiropractor, Dr. Daniel Knowles, and I'm very excited to be doing this interview today with an incredible practitioner whose heart and soul is chiropractic. And before I introduce him and get going, I'll just want to start off by saying Mile High 2013 just blew me out of the water about how excited and how enthusiastic and all the people that showed up. It really was like a Field of Dreams event. Build it, and I just anticipated people to come, and they did. And where the next one is August 22nd to 24th this year. So mark your calendar now, set it in stone. I'd love to see you there and hang out with us. And I'm really grateful to be here with Colorado legend and chiropractic legend, Dr. Komarek, who's one of my people that I've looked up to for quite a long time, and I was really grateful to have you as part of Mile High last year, Jay.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a great couple of days.
It really was, and people loved your presentation, and I was grateful to have you there. I'm grateful to have you being there next year. I was grateful to have your participation as a Mile High Marshal.
Well, it's our home state, the fact that it's taking place here, of all places, it's good. So I'm totally behind it, 100%. Not only for you but for chiropractic, especially here in Colorado.
Yeah. So now, many people know you, but many people don't. So tell me and our audience a little bit about your background. How did you end up in the chiropractic world?
I was born to it. It was my dad was a chiropractor. I think a lot of people know this. A lot don't know it. Like as you said, my dad was a chiropractor, and his two brothers. So this one went to Lincoln Chiropractic College. My dad went to Texas Chiropractic College along with his other brother Joe. And so I was surrounded by it at a very young age. I had a sister who was having trouble and was seizuring, and then my parents took her to a chiropractor, and my dad left his business and went to chiropractic college. And so I had one of those stories in our family where there was a big shift in someone's health as a result of chiropractic. And, it was easy to fall in love with it because my mother was in love with it, my dad was in love with it, and they were their whole life centered around this philosophy, and that's pretty much what took place around our dinner table from the moment they hooked into it. So right from the start. Animals came shortly. I was very young when I saw a horse get adjusted, and the horse, chiropractic, the enthusiasm, the passion came like a perfect storm for me to stir me, and then I was off to the races. Literally. Yeah.
It's very funny you say this, that because, being from a chiropractic family as well, how many chiropractors are in your family?
Well, it depends. If you count brother-in-laws who've left relationships, I think we're around 15 or 16.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got me beat by a lot.
But you got plenty of time. I'm twice your age, so.
Well, we being from a chiropractic family, when the dinner table is always a chiropractic conversation. Our kids are just completely used to that. Myself and my wife are just going to talk about chiropractic for hours. It's funny you say that about seeing a horse, because I'm wondering if, I was in pre-chiropractic, and I was out here in Colorado, and I went to a hotel, to a network seminar, and there was a horse in the hotel getting adjusted. Wow. That was the first time I ever saw that, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why is there a horse in this hotel?
Yeah. We've done it at hotels, but outside. I've never brought I brought obviously dogs and cats and but we've never brought a horse. We make the participants go outside.
So now, tell me a little bit. Obviously, you had family mentors. Who have been your mentors in chiropractic?
Well, early on it was Jim Parker. It was going to Parker seminars. And there were a host of people within that group. Dr. Sigafus, Jim, was my hero early on. Reggie Gold. When I was a kid, my dad and my mom would play a record of, I think it was called The Golden Years. I think, I'm not sure what the name of that album was, but my mom wore that out, playing that album of Reggie telling the story. And so Reggie, Jim Sigafoose, and then I have to say that Donnie Epstein really shifted and opened my thinking about the role of chiropractic in a broader sense. Changed my idea. I went from linear thinking to kind of non-linear thinking. And it was all a result of your, Donnie and your stepdad. And so I owe a great deal to him. And I studied network for many years, just from a philosophical standpoint. I wasn't suited to it. I appreciated it, but I was doing structural work, and I loved the structural aspect, although I incorporated a lot of conceptually what I was doing from an energetic standpoint. Right. And so I owed a great deal to him. My buddy Arnaud Bernier, we've been friends all these years, and we've collaborated teaching, and he knows the depth of philosophy so well.
Yeah.
So many people. There's so many people now I admire within the profession. Rob Sinnott, his book, and Sue Brown and BGI, and we have and then we have the whole legion of upper cervical people who. We have quite a diverse group and some pretty bright people within the profession.
I want to ask you what you think about this. I have felt like there's been this darkness in chiropractic last 10, 20, 30 years, something in that range, and I feel like we're coming out of that. At least I want to see that. And I'm putting out there that that's the case, that we're coming into a new renaissance of the chiropractic philosophy, and I really hope we are. Where do you think the profession's been and what you've seen in your time in it, and where we need to go to get forward?
It's a big question, and I'll try and do it in stages. When I was younger in the 60s and the 70s, there was this rich philosophy that really the chiropractors my family hung out with had embraced. And then, with insurance coming in, things shifted in a very dramatic way, where the service was provided or paid for by insurance in a lot of different ways. So that took us that sidetracked us from my perspective. So the insurance had a whole lot to do. What we have now, or what we're able to do now, and that this is going to go in outreach to so many people, that we have a network now, that this message that you're communicating to an entire group is a lot like the brain communicating to all the cells, and that we have this ability in a nanosecond to have a message get out there. And if something is askew in the profession, and it is way askew in a lot of arenas, everybody now, if they're awake and have an interest, can find out what's happening. We know what's happening at the schools. We know who are leading. We know who's leading at Sherman. We know who's not leading. And so there's a lot of issues. There's the business aspect of it. There was the educational aspect and how that's been governed or not governed by National Board of Chiropractic Examiners, and you have that. Then you have no business acumen. You have people with zero business acumen. We have Mark Swerdlick now, who's really bringing people up to speed on, let's snap to it, and how do you go about structuring a strategy to create a successful business model. So you have all of that. You have the whole political inworkings. It's complex. It's a very, very complex story. The common thread is that the philosophy has not changed. The philosophy's been the philosophy, and although we have all of this stuff happening around it, the core of what we do has remained the same. And so now it's up to you or me, Arno, Mark Swerdlick, so many great leaders in the profession going out and telling the story, but not in a rah-rah, really telling the story and then helping people to really get on their feet with a common sense, rational approach to business, philosophy, educating people.
So Jay, you were talking about education and that we had political challenges, business challenges, and educational challenges that had taken us away. Mention a little bit about that more.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is the leadership in the educational process, and I think we mentioned earlier, but I'll mention it again, someone like Dr. Cordero, who's leading Sherman Chiropractic College. You have, leaders who need to step up the game in terms of the leadership. Now they've had political issues to deal with, so a lot of the leaders or so-called leaders have straddled the fence. So the step into leadership to really represent chiropractic is a tall order.
Yeah, and a big part of that has been, you mentioned at your talk at Mile High last year, something that was so powerful. You talked about Waldorf education. So here's something that has a certain set of principles and values, and you said something about that, how we should follow that lead. What was it that you said about that?
Well, they've had 100 years of successful, education with students who are very, very satisfied with their education, and they had non-negotiable principles about Waldorf education and Rudolf Steiner. Mm-hmm. That these were things that you could not break, these core principles of education. And we're like spilt milk in our educational process, and there's a hint of what chiropractic is about. But with Waldorf education, it's not like that. There is a core curriculum that allows a particular outcome, and very, very successful.
And if you think about that, what if our schools, rather than taking the path of least resistance, sometime in the past, or maybe from here in the future, and in our practices said, hey, these are our core values, and if this doesn't represent you, then maybe you shouldn't be a chiropractic student. Maybe
should be move on.
Move into a different healing art.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we haven't done that. And you mentioned earlier TCC, and who was it that went to TCC? Was it your dad, or was it your
My dad and his brother Joe.
Okay, your dad and brother.
And his other brother went to Lincoln Chiropractic College, but
got it.
Yeah, in Maryland.
And so, interesting is that in terms of changing the world of chiropractic, I just saw Simon Senzon's book, which was he reprinted the philosophy text from TCC of Dr. Drain.
Yeah.
And in it, Drain had said that it was going to take 900 years.
Right.
That was just his outlook in the 1920s. It was going to take 900 years to change the paradigm.
Yeah. That my dad, was Dr. Drain was my dad's hero, and he had Dr. Drain's book, and was continually quoting as a kid. I remember him always mentioning Dr. Drain. Dr. Drain said XYZ, and so the 900 years again. Dr. Drain didn't have the benefit of the net and network, and the fact that everything gets around so instantaneously, and so now the speed at which we're really are capable of growing the profession is based on the network and the net, and the fact that there are so many sites where people can get information. And so anyway, that we're at a great advantage now, and now it's up to us to really lead. We need leaders, great leaders in the profession.
Well, and that's what we're trying to do. And the people that have been mentors and can continue and have been mentored need to light more candles. And I mean, that's my consciousness with Mile High is, I kind of got woken up being involved with Sherman College, and when I saw what I was, sitting in my own cubbyhole, which a lot of chiropractors do, practicing, and then when I saw, this is what's going on, you can't let that continue to happen, because you're right, there's certain principles of just, we have to make sure chiropractic moves forward. And so I got tired of it. I was getting a lot of anxiety and a lot of anger and a lot of frustration looking at these things. And I said, well, this isn't helping me. It's not helping the world being upset about it. It's time to light some candles. So I appreciate you lighting some candles with me here.
Yeah, happy to. I'm happy to. And a program like Mile High being centered in the central states is significant, because you have the West Coast represented with an awesome program in CalJam. You've got New Beginnings, you've got DE, and now we've got Mile High right in the central states. So it makes it convenient for for all of this area. So that part's great. There's nobody that should be saying, I can't get to a program because for whatever reason. There's always something going on. And here, now that we're going to have this, it's great.
Right, and this part of the country needs it because it's been the allopathic stronghold. I mean, this whole Colorado, Wisconsin, Iowa, and there are chiropractic greats here, you know, in this area. So I want to ask you this: with people going to programs like the ones you've mentioned, why do you think that's important? What other than what they get in their office or they get from textbooks or going to maybe practice management program, whatever they go to, why are things like this important?
It's important for, one, to learn to stay inspired. You know, I'd go over the years after 37 years and I would hear one thing that would open up my world. Maybe it was on business, or maybe it was on communication, or maybe it was, I'd be watching somebody who was instructing about, you know, an X-ray analysis, and I'd learn something. So one, you're going to come away with a piece of information and that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So that's on one end. The other end is that you need to stay inspired, and so that piece of information inspires you. And in addition to that, we have community. That there's a community of chiropractors of like mind that you realize when you go back on Monday that you're not alone. Like, I know you're in Boulder, and I know how you practice, and I know you're dedicated to the principle. So it's like, oh, Danny's there, Jay's there. You know, we have this collective of people, and all of a sudden you realize I can stand strong because I know I'm part of this movement. You know, DE and its success, or New Beginnings, and now CalGym. All of a sudden you have this movement. And, you know, what we've lacked is momentum. And now what we have is a movement and momentum. And now how do you direct it? Well, you know, we're going to direct it educationally. It's going to take place here at your program and the Mile High program, and then, you know, hopefully it sparks that person who realizes that I'm going to go out and I'm going to lead. And, you know, for me, the animals is my way of doing it, that connecting people to chiropractic through animals without necessarily having to speak so much about subluxation. But when they watch an animal adjusted, they realize, oh, that's really a very powerful, compelling story there. So that's been this last 15, 20 years especially.
Yeah, you know, I went to some of my best moments, just moments in chiropractic over the last 18 years I've been involved in the chiropractic profession. I'm still a youngin' here. is been at events. I went to, I don't know if you remember these, but the Fountainhead seminars with Terry Romberg did. I went to one of those in New Jersey. And I was 18 or 19. I walk into a room. I don't know why I was there. And I walk into a room. They said, oh, this is about Sherman College. I didn't know what Sherman College was. I walk into the room, and Tom Gilardi's there, who I've never met before. And he's talking with Peter Kevorkian, talking to this room of people about why they had to be chiropractors. And I listened to Tom, and it was amazing what he said. And those moments, or going to Sherman and hearing Reggie speak, the people's lives who will be touched by doing things like that, you get more just by sometimes rubbing elbows with someone that you meet for real, and one or two sentences that they say in an elevator that you don't get when you're doing web-based or internet or things that are maybe for continuing ed, or that are really the heart and soul of where chiropractic lives.
Right. You know, there's an authentic nature to a good many of them, and the ones that are not in that place, you can sense, you know, pretty quickly, you know. So at those, you know, you get this wide array of individuals, and, you know, you'll resonate with the person who's meaningful, you know, for you, where you are in your development. You know, we talk about chiropractic, and, you know, after 37 years, I'm still learning. I'm still figuring out the nuances of an adjustment, the force, the speed, the directions. Especially with a horse where you can't take an X-ray. You can, but kind of useless in a lot of ways. So, you know, the process of chiropractic is lifelong. I encourage people that commit to a lifetime, of your own self-education and going out to help somebody else.
I've got to tell you, that was a gem to say that. It really was, because people don't do it. People don't necessarily see chiropractic as the art that it really is meant to be. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
that it's not nurtured in school. So if we can nurture that a little bit, so
Yeah. You see
no,
people come out of school after a year and they think they've got it all wired. And, it's like, you can spend the first 5 years just getting your feet wet. The next 5 or 10 years, all of a sudden realizing that you're clueless. And then all of a sudden it starts to click in.
right.
It's a huge, the complexities of it. It's simply complex. It's simple in that there's a rhyme and reason to everything that innate is doing, and it's complex in that it's doing several trillion things at one time. So you have a lot to study.
Well, I really appreciate you're going to be there. I appreciate your support. I appreciate you, helping us get the word out to more people in the Colorado and surrounding regions.
Oh,
Some of your mentors, as you said, Arnaud Bernier is going to be there. Donnie's going to be there this year. It's going to be even more over the top than last year, and I am so grateful for your heart that you've given to chiropractic, and most
thank you.
importantly,
It's
chiropractic
my joy to
patients.
do it. Really my joy to do it for you and for chiropractic.
Yeah. Well, it's for chiropractic, and even more importantly, it's for the patients. There's people's lives that are going to
Yeah.
get touched.
Yeah.
That maybe, I had people that called me and said that they were in tears, could completely change what they were going to do in their practice from where direction their practice was going, and we need to do that because not enough people are. So I appreciate you helping us not just light a candle, but a bonfire.
Yeah, no, I try to do that everywhere I go. Time is short, as you realize, wow, you're only on this planet a short time, and whatever you're doing, you want to have impact. I want to have impact on people in a loving way, in a soulful way, in a
Right.
way that changes their life, where they have a great outcome.
Yeah.
It's easy to do with chiropractic.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jay.
yeah,
My brother on the other end of Colorado here, and I'm gonna have to. I know you ran into family up in Boulder. I'm gonna have to get down there to visit you, and I look forward to seeing you at Mile High and in Colorado.
okay. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.